Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel The Coding Arc, and we are in part 3 of our video series on SAP CAP. In this video, we will see about virtual elements and calculated elements. So what are virtual elements? These are the elements that are not actually stored or persisted in our database, but they are the part of our metadata calls. Now let's take an example. Why do we need these virtual elements? Let's say we are building an employee management system where we have an entity employee. An employee will have its ID, will have its first name, last name, salary, and grade. And let's say that grade is decided based on the salary. If the salary is greater than 50,000, then the grade is high, otherwise the grade is low. Now, why to store this grade in database? When we have access to our salary every time, why not calculate it at runtime, at the event after read? Let me demonstrate you in our BTP HANA trial. So let's continue from our dev space, which we already created in our previous videos. And let's say I have an entity employee with fields ID, first name, last name, salary, and a virtual element grade. Now let's create a service out of it, and let's try to see how this virtual element behaves. Now if I go to my service, I have just created a service out of my employees entity, and also I have declared an event, that is whenever we are reading, what should happen. Whenever I'm gonna read this database, then I will have access to my records. Now it can be a single record or an array of record. So with the tertiary operator, I'm deciding if it's a single or a arrayed data. Then I'm looping into each record, and with each iteration I'm storing it into emp variable. Now for my testing, what I did, I just checked if the first name of the employee is Saurav, then his employee grade is high. Let's check this. Now before checking this, let me explain you one concept in CAPM, that is, till now we haven't declared any database. So when we do CDS watch, it is declaring a database in memory. So whenever we will do CDS watch and then cancel that and again use CDS watch, then our data will be lost because the data was in the memory. To have it stored in SQLite, and whenever we are running this CDS watch again and again, to have your data persisted, in our package.json we need to add this. After adding this, we need to issue the command cds deploy. Now this has created one file called db.sqlite. Now this is the file you see. We have our actual schema with what all the variables we have created: first name, last name, salary, and then our grade. Now let me issue the command cds watch. Okay, now if I open this in new tab, if I see the JSON response, I see an empty value. So let's go ahead with our Postman or any API tester. In my case, let me use this. So let me copy this URL and put it here. And if I do get now, I will have that same response of empty. But now if I do post and pass Saurav Goel and grade value, now let's see what happens. So what do you think? We have passed test in grade section. What it will do? Will it store in database, or how it will behave. Let's see. See, our response get failed. Let's see what is the issue. So it says that grade doesn't exist. Let's go to our schema. We see grade exists, but with capital G. So let me just change it to capital G. If I send again, yeah, it passed. But you see, although I passed test in my API, it returned high. Why? Because in my service, I already wrote this code. If the first name is Saurav, return high. Now, if I go ahead and refresh my get call, you see I have Saurav Goel with grade high. Salary is null because we haven't passed it yet. Now let's do one more thing. What we will do, instead of taking the first name, we'll check if the salary is greater than equals to 50,000 and the grade is high, else employee.grade is low. And let me create a new entry. So this time, instead of Saurav, let me go with Gaurav. And again I'll pass random in test, but this time let me pass salary here. Let's say my salary is just 49. Now let's see what happens. Okay, the response got failed. It says, okay, the issue is I need to pass comma here. Okay, you see, my salary was 49, which is less than 50, so it declared my grade as low. Same if I check in my get call, I have first sort of that I didn't pass salary. Now and since there was no salary, it went to else and printed low. But in my second case, my salary was actually low, so it printed low. Let me create one more. Let me say this time I have a B-Shake and my salary is 51,000. See, my salary is now determined to high. If I refresh this, yeah, it determined to high. Now this virtual elements are of two kinds. By default, when I declared this as virtual, it the at runtime the compiler has put this annotation for me, that is default code.computed true. It means that it is read only for client, and whatever client will send, that is ignored. We already saw in the API in the grade we passed test, but that has no effect. It anyway calculated in the runtime and then showed us in our API get call. Now we have one more annotation, that is code.computed false. Now here what it does, it says now whatever we pass in our post API call, that is actually readable in one of our event, that is before create, and then we can decide based on that input what to do. So what I will do, I will update the service and let's see how this behaves. My entity, I'll declare one more virtual element. Let's say this time I'll declare remark. Of type string 100. Now I need to pass the annotation core.computed is false. virtual element with core computed as false. Now to accept this from the API call, we need to get hold of it in one of our events. So let me get hold of this in our event before create. So for this I will write modules dot exports srv, and then I will do srv dot before create for entity employees, and then I'll get data, let's say a request, and then so what we will check here is if data dot remarks is equal to a, then what we will do, we will just do console dot log data dot remarks. So this way we will able to demonstrate that whatever we are passing from our post API call, that is reaching to our service, and hence we are doing the console log for it. Now if I create a new entity with, let's say, Nikki Goel, my entity got created. Now if I see my console, I see nothing got printed. Let's see why. Okay, so I got the problem. The problem is we are calling this event create, but create, it should be all caps. Now if I again call this, if I now check, okay, this time it is logged successfully, reached UI successfully. Now if I have to check what I got, let's see what I'll do. I'll directly do console dot log whatever you got, just show me remarks. Now if I pass sending from post API, yes, this is getting locked in our console. Let's go further. So this virtual elements, as we know, are not persisted in our database. We have a few trade-offs here, that in our OData calls, it is not shortable, it is not filterable, it is not searchable, because database doesn't know about them. Moving forward, we have calculated elements. Now these are the elements which can reference other element of the same entity, and then they are computed automatically by the framework. We have again two variants here, on read, on write. Similarly, what we used to have in our virtual element, code.computed true false, here we have on read, on write. Let's look into them one by one with example. So let's say I have my first name, last name. There is no need to again store full name. We can calculate it at the database level directly by referring the same entities field, that is first name and last name. Let's try this. So we will go to our entity. Let's try to create a calculated element with on read. Now what we will do, we will declare full name as string, and that value will be first name and then a space in between and then last name. Let's So now I have full name with first name and last name. Now before doing this, first we need to clear our database. Why? Because now we are changing the structure. It will give us a database issue. So we will first remove our SQLite database file. Then we are again issue the command cds deploy to again create this file. Now if I do cds watch and let me create an entity with Ankit. Okay, this is created 201. Now if I click on go again, we see full name Ankit Goel is printed with first name as Ankit and last name as Goel. Now finally we will see what happens with on write. Now this is not actually stored in the database when we are using on read. Now to actually have it stored in a database, we need to just add this keyword stored. Although there will be a higher memory usage because of all the database storing things, but the benefit here is we will have better performance for sorting and filtering, and ultimately it will be persisted in our DB. So let me go to my entity, and this time let me just create one more calculated element with on write, and let's say now I want my tax, but I want my tax to be stored. So I'll write decimal of type 10,2, and this is decided by my decimal D should be capital, my salary multiplied by 0.1. Okay, now again I am changing my database structure. Let me remove my previous database file. Let me deploy this again. Let me issue the command cds watch again. Now this time now I will have 0 record, obviously, because my whole database is cleared. Now let me again pass this entity. Now my tax should be 5100 based on my calculation, and my full name should be Ankit Goel. And did I write that keyword? No, stored. Okay, let me just call this API. Okay, this is called, and you see that tax is also calculated. Now let me see. First let me select columns. Yeah, we see one record and we see our taxes 5100. Now this tax 5100, it is actually stored in our DB, and it is not dependent on our events and all. If we actually see our database, we will see Ankit Goel, our salary and tax to be stored, but full name it is calculated when we are calling that DB. That time it is dynamically taking the first name, last name, and making it as a full name. But tax, it will fetch it from its table itself because we have declared the type as stored. Now that's all for today's session. We will meet in some another video. Thank you.